are. There's this inclination to take it to the next step and say, maybe that's going to help somebody. Maybe that's going to benefit somebody, which in and of itself is a benign statement, maybe even a nice sentiment to say, like, I want to help people. But do you think that drive, maybe it's similar to the one I was saying before, that like purpose, that compulsion, that sense of always having to be like, and then I'll scale it, and then it'll help somebody, and then it's going to make an impact in somebody's life. Although that's well-intentioned, do you think that's kind of a net negative thing? Would we be better? You see this in some different philosophers and different ancient wisdom that like, just do the thing for the sake of have the conversation. I wonder this sometimes, even this, like, why am I recording it? Why am I posting it? Why am I sharing it? Like, why not just have the conversation because you're trying to gain knowledge and you just do it for the sake of what it is, maybe in the true artistic sense. How do you think about that?
Yeah, you know what? I think this is the best part of doing all of this, right? Like, I don't enjoy the sharing. I don't enjoy like the, hey, check it out,
Yeah.
and the hashtags and like the nice description even that you would write about it. This is the best point because you're in the zone, you're in the flow. A lot of it is ego checking, right? Like, I mean, ultimately, like, I'd like to think that I'm influencing somebody. I could be zero people that, you know, end up even listening to me in my podcast, right? So ultimately, like, it's a matter of like, that toxic positivity sentiment, that side of it. Again, a lot of philosophers have touched on it. Like, you know, when the ego speaks, it's like only the ego listens, right?
Mm.
Like, so meaning like, you know, if I could be saying, hey, you know, you're doing a great job, and we're just saying, yeah, you're also doing a great job. We're just patting each other on the back, right? And that's not necessarily helping anybody, right? So, I mean, I've listened to tons of shows and I looked at tons of content where it's just like a billionaire is chatting to a comedian, or a comedian's talking to another comedian, and just like, okay, you guys have done it to the top. You guys are at the top of the mountain. Now you're just talking about your own problems. How am I supposed to relate to this and say, I've learned something new from this today? Right? Or maybe I'm thinking I'm one of these guys the way they think, you know, and so I think, you know, the way we sort of go on is like, I want to think more like myself. I don't want to be like one of these people. They've already charted their way to the top. Why should I have to follow that same path, right?
Mm.
And the harder thing to do is to step outside of your ego and say, well, this is not what I'm comfortable with, but maybe this is what I need to do.
Mm.
Assess yourself a little bit and say, what are my strengths and weaknesses? And maybe get others, like your, you know, get your partner and get your family involved and ask, like, hey, maybe what can you tell me, like, if this is a strength of mine or if this is a weakness of mine? And if you sort of see that you're wrong, and not wrong, but like they have a different answer compared to you, maybe your ego's getting in the way. And I
Mm.
think that's the easiest way to do it. And you know,
Mm.
that's the reason why we all get into arguments with our friends and family is, you know, we think we're doing the right thing when sometimes we're not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you said as you were answering that you'd like to think, people are listening and it's making an impact. Just to press on that, and again, I'm same for me as for
Yeah.
you. If you dig into that, like why would you, why does that matter to you? I mean, there's obvious answers, right? Like it would,
Yeah.
but if you get deep on it, why does it matter if people are listening to your podcast, if you're making an impact on their lives?
I'm gonna go. I always go from top to bottom, so I you might see this in my thought process. So to answer that question, why does it matter? I start from the very top. I think the very top is everything that I've experienced in my life can only be validated by me. So meaning like I can't use somebody else as a reference point. So I have to assume that everything happening in my life is due to me because I'm the one experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
That leads to me then thinking, well, you know, everything I do needs to have some sort of an impact. Otherwise, why am I existing? Right. So then I think part of me goes, my identity needs to be somebody who is impactful for not only myself, but like, you know, expanding that, like that horizon for others around me and people who care about me. You know, selfishly, I think part of it is I want people around me to love me for who I am, right? So meaning I don't have to necessarily always wear certain filters and masks always to fit in. So it's a matter of like, I think going back to like the thing that matters the most, right? The freedom. And I think it's a great question because it all circles back, right? What is most important? Quality of life, right? Some people say, I want to be powerful, famous, I want to do X, Y, Z. All of those are valid, right? But coming back to quality of life, I think for me the freedom aspect is very important. So, you know, anything that allows me the freedom to explore, to grow, to navigate without judgment, to the level that people would otherwise experience, I think that's what's important. And that impact comes with,
Mm.
you know, I acquiring a skill. I was never really skilled at really anything. I'm like a jack of all trades, right? So ultimately, I thought like, what is this skill? Maybe it's conversation, you know. And sometimes people learn a lot from conversation, and I think it's just as important as a documentary, or just as important as a Twitch stream on Amazon. You know, people are learning from gamers. People are like, there's new ways people learn every day.